All right, let's just dive right into it because we really need to talk about the elephant in the room that's absolutely dominating the wrestling conversation right now. Ever since the recent Double or Nothing pay-per-view, there's been this sudden, undeniable influx of lapsed fans returning to watch All Elite Wrestling. We're talking about viewers who hadn't tuned in for months, maybe even years, suddenly finding their way back to Wednesday Night Dynamite. It's this incredible shift in momentum that has literally everybody talking. So today, in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly what's driving this sudden surge, what's actually working, and where the company still has some pretty major blind spots.
But here's the million-dollar question, right? Is AEW truly regaining its popularity? I mean, is this recent surge in fan excitement just a temporary spike? Like a post-pay-per-view bump that's going to fade away in a couple weeks? Or are we looking at a legitimate, sustained resurgence for the promotion? To really figure that out, we have to look closely at the booking, the character shifts, and the long-term storylines AEW is putting together right now.
So here is our match card for today's explainer. First, we're looking at the AEW resurgence. Second, forging new villains. Third, we'll tackle the women's division problem. And finally, we'll map out the road to All In.
Kicking things off with Section 1, the AEW resurgence, and specifically how they are bringing back the lapsed fan.
It's super fascinating to look at the specific catalysts driving people back. Take this quote from a fan who historically leaned heavily toward WWE. When he was asked why he suddenly decided to drop money on the Double or Nothing pay-per-view, his answer wasn't about some out-of-the-blue brand loyalty. He said, "The interview that MJF did with Ariel Helwani made me want to watch. I like the card." Just think about that for a second. AEW successfully used outside media to draw eyes back to their product. Sending a generational talker like MJF to a massive platform like Ariel Helwani's show, it totally worked. It sold the pay-per-view to someone who was completely disenfranchised with the product. It wasn't about taking shots at the competition, it was literally just a compelling wrestler making an incredible pitch for a strong card of matches. And, this perfectly captures the balancing act AEW is dealing with right now. You've got AEW's true identity on one side, contrasted with this idea of becoming WWE 2.0. With all these casual and returning viewers tuning in, the immediate reflex might be, hey, let's change the product to cater to them. But the analysis here vehemently argues against doing that. To actually retain these returning viewers, AEW absolutely must stay the course. They have to remain a true alternative. Trying to become WWE 2.0 or even TNA 2.0 just isn't going to help them. The fans tuning in are doing so to see what AEW uniquely brings to the table. If a viewer doesn't like it, hey, that's okay. But AEW shouldn't abandon its core identity just to chase them.
All right, moving right along to Section 2, forging new villains, focusing on the rise of Kevin Knight.
So, a massive part of keeping fans engaged is taking risks and building new compelling characters. And the motivation behind this recent heel turn? It wasn't just some random, out-of-nowhere attack. It actually had a clear, justified, logical progression. It's like a three-step process. Step 1. The locker room completely trusted Darby Allin to beat MJF. They rallied behind him because literally nobody wanted the MJF reign of terror to return. Step 2. Darby failed, MJF dragged him and got the championship back. Step 3. Kevin Knight decides, all right, I have to take matters into my own hands. Knight's perspective makes total sense when you think about it. He's essentially saying, we put all our hopes on you to stop this nuisance, you let us down, so now I have to be the roadblock. It's incredibly effective because he's speaking pure facts, even if his methods are totally villainous.
And man, how effective was this character shift? Just listen to the crowd. F you, Kevin! That was the undeniable, visceral reaction from the notoriously tough Philadelphia crowd. When Knight attacked Darby Allin, who is, let's be real, the undisputed heart and soul of AEW, it generated the loudest, most hostile fan reaction of the entire night. It even overshadowed a World Championship segment with MJF earlier in the show. If you want to instantly cement a brand new bad guy, having them completely destroy a beloved underdog in front of a passionate crowd is exactly how you do it.
The immediate fallout on television the next week only cemented his new status. We had Speedball attempting this sort of peace intervention, and get this, he's wearing an outfit heavily inspired by The Rock's classic Nation of Domination look. He essentially demands that Knight apologize and stop acting this way, but Knight, he just shuts it down immediately. He completely refuses to apologize, which firmly cements this new identity, and then he makes this bold, insane declaration right to MJF's face that he is going to become the world champion. It was a massive step up the metaphorical ladder for Knight, and it proves AEW is totally willing to take a chance on elevating newer talent into these high-stakes, main event level positions.
But look, it's not all perfectly booked storylines right now. That brings us to Section 3, the women's division problem, specifically looking at the booking gap.
Actually, scratch that. Let's just boil this entire frustration down to a single number, 1. That is the total number of women's matches that have taken place in the Owen Hart tournament so far. Meanwhile, the men's bracket has already blown through its first round and is advancing straight into the semifinals. I mean, it is an undeniable, glaring disparity in how the two divisions are being treated during a major, company-wide event.
And this really illustrates the root of why fans are so frustrated. Let's look at the breakdown of a recent massive television block. AEW put on a 3-hour broadcast with an overrun. They possess an absolutely stacked, massive roster of female talent. Yet, across that entire 3+ hours of television, viewers were given exactly one short tag team match and a main event that lasted 10 minutes max. When you have top-tier athletes literally waiting in the wings, and you dedicate 3 hours to your product, giving the women's division essentially 15 minutes of total screen time is a huge booking gap. And trust me, fans are actively noticing and criticizing it.
And the pressure, it is only mounting. Which brings us to this quote regarding the upcoming Women's Owen Hart Tournament wildcard reveal. A fan noted, "They can't give us anybody that's disappointing to the fans because people kind of have high hopes for this. The speculation has reached an absolute fever pitch. We're talking about massive names being thrown around in these theories, Mercedes Moné, Mickie James, even Dakota Kai. With the current booking critique hanging heavily over their heads, AEW has kind of backed themselves into a corner here. This wildcard reveal absolutely has to be a home run."
All right, let's pivot to our final section, the road to All In, focusing on the main event picture.
As we look toward the company's future roadmap, the top of the card is just dominated by these chaotic, overlapping storylines setting up massive clashes down the line. In the short term, we've got the newly crowned world champion MJF facing Rush next week. But looking further down the calendar, you can see the dominoes falling into place. It looks incredibly likely we're heading toward Will Ospreay versus Swerve Strickland at the Forbidden Door pay-per-view. And all of that seems to be a stepping stone toward the ultimate destination at their biggest show of the year, All In, featuring Will Ospreay taking on Kenny Omega for the World Championship in Canada.
But there's a catch. That massive All-In main event comes with a humorous, yet totally valid, fan critique. Will Kenny, why are you on that Roman schedule? This is a direct comparison to WWE's Roman Reigns and his famously sporadic television appearances. Fans are genuinely asking why Kenny Omega, one of the foundational stars of the company who has massive upcoming title implications, just isn't present on weekly television. They want to see him wrestling, on the road, mixing it up, rather than just popping in for these isolated cinematic backstage confrontations. This absence actually creates a really fascinating dynamic for the impending Forbidden Door match. On one side, you have Will Ospreay's divided focus. He's totally distracted, dealing with the Death Riders, and hyper-focused on his long-term goal of getting his hands on Kenny Omega. On the other side, you have Swerve Strickland. Swerve's strategy is entirely calculated. He knows Ospreay isn't paying attention to him, so Swerve is positioning himself to just step in and pick the bones. It's a fantastic story of a heavily mentored, distracted favorite walking blind into a trap set by a lethal, highly focused opportunist. So, that brings us to the end of today's explainer, and I want to leave you with one massive question. Is AEW's current momentum enough to carry them all the way to their biggest pay-per-view of the year? We've seen lapsed fans returning, we've had incredible star-making moments like the rise of Kevin Knight, and there's an undeniable main event roadmap in place. But with those very valid critiques regarding the women's division and the sporadic appearances of their top stars, can they maintain this creative hot streak all the way to All In? It's going to be a wild ride to find out. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll see you next time.